The Isaiah Factor Uncensored starts right now.
And welcome to The Factor Uncensored. On this Friday night, we start with an unbelievable case out of Florida, where one police department is under investigation after a baby was said to have been seriously hurt while in their custody, in their care. Take a look. This is what the baby's family says happened to their 1-year-old while sitting in the back of a police car with police officers. News outlets there report the baby and his 3-year-old brother were in the car, while the SWAT team was dealing with his father, who was not the target of the initial investigation and no criminal record or history. Tonight, the family joins The Factor to tell us what happened from Pensacola, Florida.
I received a phone call that morning from one of his family members saying that I needed to come there to get the kids. They didn't give me any details on why. They just told me that I needed to come there. So I left immediately. I was on my way. About 10 minutes later, I received another phone call saying that my son was injured. My 1-year-old was injured, and that his face was bloody and that I needed to get there quick. So at this point, I'm frantic. When I arrived at the scene, I saw caution tape all over the place. So many officers, and I'm just looking for my children. So I'm asking everybody around, where's my kids? Where's my kids? And when I saw my 1-year-old, his face was unrecognizable, did not look at all like himself.
And as a mother, what did that do to you, seeing your baby like that, 1-year-old, right?
I was devastated. I was angry. I had so many emotions, knowing that I wasn't there and there was nothing that I could have done to prevent it. It's indescribable, honestly.
And Mr. Bryan and Mr. Reeves, tell us exactly what you guys know happened to that child in police custody.
What I can tell you from and really this comes from their son, Kayon, who was the witness to seeing his little brother fall. Essentially, Kayon said he was sitting in the backseat of the police vehicle with an officer and his little brother. His little brother was being held by the police officer. When the police officer opened the door to the vehicle, he dropped little Kylan directly on his face, and it hit the asphalt. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And Mr. Reeves, take us back to the beginning really quick. Why were police there at the house anyway?
From our understanding, they were at the house to execute a search warrant looking for digital evidence and maybe clothing, but there was nothing related to our client, Mr. Corey Marino. He was not a part of the investigation at all at that point.
And so they came into the house, I think, at 5 a.m. We're talking about SWAT, right?
Yes, SWAT team. My client describes 20, 25 officers to execute a search warrant around 4:30 a.m. And really, there was no opportunity for him to know that the police was outside his door in the middle of the night.
So they barge into the house. Do we know if this was a knock or a no-knock warrant?
This was a knock warrant. This was a knock warrant. It wasn't a no-knock warrant. However, the time length that they took to enter the home, it was very clear they did not want Mr. Marino to have any notice that they were coming in the home.
And
then we're talking about 4 or 5 in the morning, right?
Correct.
And so he thought these were intruders. Is that my understanding, Mr. Bryant?
Yeah. So, to touch a little bit on what Mr. Reeves was saying, the Pensacola Police has a policy which essentially says this: before you enter into a home, you have to wait 15 seconds after you knock and announce. In this instance, it's alleged, and we still don't even know if this is true, but it's alleged that they knocked and announced. However, in their own police report, they identified that they waited 10 seconds, which is completely in violation of their policy. So at that moment in time, at 4:30 in the morning, 4:45 in the morning, Mr. Marino, who is with his 1-year-old and his 3-year-old baby, he hears a boom at his door. He again thinks it's an intruder. And he did what every single American who is a registered firearm owner would have done with their babies in the home at 4:30. He fired a shot when that door busted open, and that was absolutely legal. It is within the Castle Doctrine in the state of Florida, and he had a right to defend his family.
Now, they have not, as of yet, filed charges against Mr. Marino, right? And anyone can chime in and answer.
As of right now, there's no charges that have been filed. When I last was in touch with the prosecutor, they told me it'll be a 2-week decision and we'll have an answer, but we're trying to apply pressure as much as we can to make sure that they know any charges would be unjust in this situation.
Now, is there an internal investigation underway at the Pensacola Police Department?
There is an internal investigation as it relates to the injuries to Kylan. They are trying to figure out what happened. Part of the reason why they investigated this matter is because the emergency services who had come to actually treat Kylan eventually had a report that said that he only had a few bumps and bruises, and that the Pensacola Police Department had canceled them from taking him to the emergency room. But when Ms. Dixon actually arrived at the scene and she saw her son, as she described before, he was unrecognizable. He had serious head injuries. I mean, this is a child that was dropped probably at least 1 or 2 feet off the ground and landing onto concrete.
On his face.
On his face. As you could see the pictures, he had a busted nose, busted mouth, severe bruising all over his forehead. And this was after he was cleaned up. When Ms. Dixon got him, even though EMS had arrived, little Kylan's face was absolutely completely covered in blood. And they tried to dissuade her from bringing him to the emergency room when she said, "I need to take my child right away." And so therefore, I think Pensacola Police Department opened up an investigation to determine how on earth this could have happened, and what did they do after the baby was injured in order to provide adequate medical care, which we claim they did not do.
And Ms. Dixon, if you're able to say, what did they tell you when they tried to dissuade you from taking your child to the hospital?
I was told by 3 different officers at once that he leaned on the door, and when he leaned on the door, he opened it and fell out.
But I mean, what did they say to you to try to convince you not to take your child to the hospital?
When I said, but before I even had a chance to say, I'm going to take him, they said, he leaned on the door, fell out, but no, he's okay. We had someone come and check him out. He's okay. Don't take him to the hospital. Make sure you don't take him, because someone already looked at him. He's fine.
So, Reverend LaTimothy May, why did you think it was important to get as much attention to this story as possible?
Well, you know, we see these things happening all the time, especially in communities of color, where there's no knock, or these incidents with police officers that go in, renegade, and do whatever they want to our community, our children, our young men and young ladies, and it goes unnoticed. And I just, you know, these things have to be announced. They have to be vocalized. They have to be articulated. They have to be voiced, so that not just Moya and Corey, but other young people of color across the country can know that this is not acceptable, and we will stand against it, these injustices. And it's very important that whether it's in Chicago, New York, but here in Pensacola, that we vocalize that these are not circumstances that are okay, and we will not go away silently while you mistreat our young people at the hands of bad policing.
Now, has there been or any thought of civil action in this case?
Yes, absolutely. As it first relates to the children, and that's what we're really focusing on, the civil action for the children at this point. We're going to be filing both state and federal claims. The state claims are going to be related to the injuries that both the boys suffered, the physical and emotional injuries suffered by Kylan, and the emotional injuries suffered by Kayon, who saw his brother injured. Secondly, we plan on filing a 1983 action for failure to render adequate assistance, medical assistance, to a person who's in police custody. The children were in police custody at the time when Kylan was injured. Not only did they not provide him with adequate medical attention, but they attempted to prevent him from actually getting the adequate medical attention he needs. So we plan on filing a federal action, which will include both state and federal claims.
And Ms. Dixon, ultimately, as a mother, what do you want to see happen in this case, both civilly and with the internal investigation at the Pensacola, Florida Police Department?
I want them to lose their jobs and to pay for what I would have had to pay for if I'd done that to my child, or if that happened when he was in my care.
Only reasonable from a mother. We thank you, and we thank you all for joining us here on The Factor Uncensored, and we'll continue to follow this story in Florida. Thank you all.
And of course, as I just said, there is an internal investigation underway at the Pensacola Police Department surrounding this case. And a reminder, the father has not been charged with a crime as of yet, and all of this occurred 2 weeks ago. So that tells you something.